Hello everyone, a very good morning to all. And today here we are gathered here for the webinar on Metaverse, on which we have invited Mr. Achyut Chandra, who is CTO from HCL Technologies, and who will share his experience regarding Metaverse and more about regarding opportunities, advantages, and what organizations should prepare. So here I would like to introduce myself and then following introduction of Mr. Achyut Chandra. Hello everyone, I'm Priya. I'll be the moderator for the webinar, and I'm senior associate for the programs who handles all the walk-ins and the webinars and programs conducted by GUSEC. And GUSEC is a zero cost, 0 day startup which has incubated till now 370 plus startups, and we are still joining in. So I welcome you all. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Achyut Chandra for our as guest speaker for the session today. A little about him. So Mr. Achyut has an experience of more than 8 years of experience in this field. He is into commercializing business innovations and curating engagements for clients. He also builds an ecosystem technology architecture evaluation for innovation business cases, product management and business development for homegrown technology, incubation initiatives, web and mobile. He has visited as various B schools as a visiting faculty. Currently, he is working out at building a quantum computing ecosystems for the next decade of disruption and also exploring technology to augment a circular economic framework. So that's all about you, Mr. Chandra. And if in case I miss something, I would request you to please fill that gap. Over to you.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Manan. And very good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for joining. Just a small clarification before we start. So I'm not the CTO of HCL, but I'm part of the CTO office. I lead an initiative called Open Innovation, and gladly part of the venturing for about I think I'm celebrating 7 years now in the same firm, so quite happy about that. But yes, thank you so much for joining. It's so heartening to see all of you. I think that's a very good crowd. So I was asking Priya the other day in terms of who are joining, if I could get a bit of perspective also. So very kindly she had told me about we'll have startups, we'll have startup enthusiasts, we'll have students, we'll have academicians as well. Now, what I thought was that there's a lot of content outside already on the metaverse and also metaverse as a terminology. So what I wanted to do was to focus on how is the market being perceived at, who's doing what, and as organizations, whether it's a startup, whether it's a firm, right? How are certain organizations typically taking up this charter as, because it's a combination basically. So metaverse is a vision. It's not So that's what I thought of preparing some information on, and I think I can get started. Just let me know if you can see my screen. Yeah. Just a quick check. I hope you can see the screen.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Thank you. So firstly, thank you for the teams, GUSEC, IIES, and Gujarat University for organizing this workshop. Quite humbled to be here and talk to all of you about my experiences in not only this particular technology, but others as well. So before we get started, right, just a quick disclosure. Yes, Rajesh. Question. So, whilst we get started, a quick disclosure. So, we'll be looking at a lot of logos, a lot of trademarks, and a lot of documentation. All of this has been corroborated and brought forward from an educational and perspective, from an experience sharing perspective. I am not the owner of most of them. It is to form a cohesive story, so that there can be good experience sharing, good experience learning for for both of us. All right. I wanted to do a small exercise with all of you. On your right hand side is a QR code. I am sure most of you, are logging in. Who can see this QR code? I would request you to scan this QR code. I'm running a quick survey to also understand, of the students, startup enthusiasts, and industry professionals, and some of the other professionals. Uh, how many of them are today right now being participated? So whilst you scan the QR code, I would request you to scan this QR code or type in your mobile this short link. It's a very small survey. It takes about 2 to 5 seconds. So that's about it. And whilst you do that, let me talk about myself. Just a very brief one. Priya has just explained. So what I've been associated with is incubating emerging technologies with the help of ecosystems. Ecosystems could be internal, bringing up team members inside a company, also partnering with the startup ecosystem, partnering with various OEMs, tech OEMs as well, developing developing intellectual property on those fronts, and also running and exploring, or I would say accelerating businesses. That's what I'm doing at HCL Technologies. And one of the things that our team does is also running the startup accelerator. It's called the ESIP program, Ecosystem Innovation Program. So now that I hope you've scanned this QR code, let's look at the results. Let me bring up the results very quickly. And just a second. All right. This is very interesting. So I can see that only about 26 participants could scan, but the form is still open, open for all of you. So I can understand that a lot of startups are joining in today, and a lot of students who would like to start startups are sort of joining. So along with working professionals as well, that's the category mostly that we're seeing. So what is in it for you in the session? Basically, look out for key trends, look out for key nuances, and key processes to make your presence inside the metaverse is something that you should look out for in terms of a key takeaway from today's session. All right, now let's get started. uh, a very quick thing, a quick snippet. Well, there's a technology, very well-known technology research firm called as Gartner, and they expect that by 2026, around 25% of the people will spend at least 1 hour in a day in metaverse for work, shopping, education, social media, and/or entertainment, which means that I am sitting here in India, in New Delhi. You might be sitting in any part of the country or even any part of the world. But as we speak together, right, we are today coming onto a single common platform, which is Zoom meeting. And you are seeing me in the 2D environment, which is, myself being present in a 2D face that is there. But imagine a place where I get transformed into a 3D avatar, right? And I all of my abilities, like speaking, like hand gestures, like facial recognition gestures, like foot movement, and also certain other nuances like spatial audio, which means that as I come closer, you might hear me better. As I move forward, as I move further away, you might, not hear me well. All those features as an individual, we are able to accomplish in a particular place, which is also virtually there, and you also get transformed into your 3D avatar. Well, that essentially is what is called as a virtual and open space, a collective space where you are converging all of the virtually enhanced physical and the digital reality. So the coexistence of the virtual and the real spaces, right, into 3D immersive environments. Immersive would mean that you're able to access them with the help of various combinatory technologies like a VR headgear. You're able to do the same functionalities. That is a metaverse. Let me repeat: a collective virtual open space. An open space could mean an open space where anybody can enter as and when you want, or you can create your own virtual space for your own employees, and that could be your own metaverse. People are creating, organizations are creating that as well. Now, activities, what we say is that what will this enable is that the activities that take, that take place right now in environments like buying land, buying virtual homes, or even social experiences that can be that are associated with commercial transactions. These will go into the virtual spaces that have been created, right? And eventually you'll be able to create your own building. You'll be able to place your ad boards over there inside those buildings. As an advertiser, you'll be able to lease out lands. You'll have things, areas like virtual shopping malls. You'll have areas like virtual banks. You'll have training, enablement, work, socialization, all of these. So these are the things that are there. But having said that, right, uh, the various technologies, combinatorial technologies, and I'll keep repeating these terminologies so that they are quite upfront. The various technologies are still at their earlier stage. So as business leaders, right, you should look at certainly not going overboard, but definitely making a start. And towards the end of the presentation, I also have a short-term and a long-term strategy as companies, as organizations, on how you could potentially take this forward. Now, a bit brief, a bit into the deep, right? How do you identify, the building blocks of a metaverse? Well, these are six that are there. So, a metaverse will enable experiences, social experiences like watching movies between individuals together. See, all of this started with playing games. So, people who have played Fortnite, people who have played Roblox, all of those games, right? They are the Gen Z. They are actually, you would be the ones who would have the first mover advantage, because you have been already going into these places, buying tokens, buying virtual avatars. So you've already started to engage even when you didn't know it. So those are what social experiences are. Now, as you are doing these commercial transaction, it forms what is called as an economic system, where you're using, it could be cryptocurrencies, it could also be other realms that are there. But uh, but usually a metaverse is based on a decentralized layer, so that holds uniqueness, and that's based on a layer of trust. That's certainly that associates a platform, an area of metaverse to it being decentralized. Well, immersive. To access the metaverse, you have namely, 3 to 4 approaches to do that. Either you become fully immersive, which means you put on a, right now you need a hardware gear, so you put on a headgear, or you have a limited degree of freedom at the moment, which means that you access it through your mobile phone or your laptop, right? But then certainly the abilities are limited, but still it has to be immersive. Boundless and persistent, these both can be taken together, because a metaverse cannot be plugged off, which means it's not an application that right now, if I want to switch it off, right, it will be off. It is still existing as you speak right now. So it's a digital twin of the real world that you've created, maybe a digital GUSEC or a digital twin of your incubator that is there, in which you can onboard other startups and other people inside those startups as avatars, and they can work together, collaborate together, and ideate on things. So these are namely the characteristics. Let's look at some of the market sizes. It's very important to look at that. Well, we're seeing roughly about a very good market size by 2025, which is about $280 billion. It's huge. And as the COVID has exponentially increased the chances of more and more hybrid work collaborations, right? This has also increased the interest in these technologies. Some news areas in terms of how much of funding goes into it. So we've seen games like Fortnite, Epic Games generate their platforms, that generated so much of revenue in terms of games. We've seen some of the other games also over here. We've seen also what are NFTs? NFTs are nothing but a small token. A non-fungible token is the name of, let's demystify all these terminologies. So a non-fungible token is nothing but a secure asset that you create, that you sell, and it cannot be replicated. So we've seen these tokens, and it is on a blockchain layer, a technology layer, so that it cannot be replicated. It's trust based. Well, we've seen these marketplaces go on. You would have seen that a lot of celebrities have launched their own tokens in terms of scenes that they have created. See, what this is doing is that it is enabling what is called as a creator economy. So if you are a creator, you have created, say, a game, you've created a movie scene, you have created, say, a sneaker which has quite different elements or tenets around it, right? You can certainly license them, you can certainly sell them as your own asset. And that's what these decentralized layers really talk about. Outside of this, we've seen a lot of technology platforms who have traditionally been immersive reality. They have become backbones of all the metaverse action that is there. Well, the metaverse will touch every industry. Here are some of the industries which will see the use cases, right? Whether it's music, whether it's ad content, medicines, new cities, transport, factories, retail, automotive, art. Certainly, art is a very interesting use case. We've seen fashion shows being conducted. That would be media and entertainment there, but we've seen if we see both combined, we've seen fashion shows being conducted. We've seen basically art galleries being hosted, on the metaverse, and then you can sell those art galleries in the form art pieces in the form of NFTs, or in the form of tokens that are quite unique in nature. So the risk of it being duplicated reduces, because there is just one art that gets created, and there is just one NFT or one token that gets created. So the opportunities are huge around here. So to sum it up, right, we'll see social networks having a great boom, and that's where Meta had launched their rebranding initiative. So now, if you pick up a Oculus gear, right, the first thing that you need is you need a Oculus account / you need a Facebook account. That's also a new mechanism of retaining your social networks and getting all of them an enhanced experience. Well, you'll be able to work and collaborate together. Your presentations, your PDFs, your files, you can collaborate. Your whiteboards that you do in the real environment, you can also do them in your virtual environment. You can watch movies together. So imagine an always on environment like an amphitheater, and you are logging in inside that amphitheater from Delhi or from Gujarat, and then your friend is logging in from Germany, but both of you are still sitting together inside that amphitheater scenario and, say, watching a gladiator movie, something like that. You'll be able to shop. Zara and other chains are launching fashion apparel inside the metaverse, where your avatar has clothing, and your avatar can. Yes, Rajesh. So your avatar has clothing. Your avatar can also change or switch clothing with different brands, and you do that through purchase. Education gets transformed. Why? Because you're able to bring an entire classroom. You're able to also educate other areas like say IT, say field services inside manufacturing plants. And then overall it's enabling a more digital economy because you need digital currency for all of those to happen. Okay, next up, this is what is called as a stack. Now, in any technology or collection of technologies, you will see what are called as stacks. Stacks are nothing but layers. Think of it like a bottom layer, then a layer above that, then a layer above that, then a layer above that, and a collection of those layers can be what is called as a full stack. It's a technology terminology. But yes, looking at all the technologies, what you need to create or to be in the metaverse, you need a very good infrastructure. So technologies like 5G would be really important. You need a human interface. Right now, wearables are the answers for that. You need a decentralization there. Nothing but blockchain, and that's the technology around it. Uh, some of the agents that are there. You need engines, you need mapping, geospatial mapping, which means that to be able to create a replica of your university, you will need to map all of those. So you need spatial computing as another technology. You will end up creating a creator economy, so you need to enable your avatars with tools, with commerce, with workflows, with with a lot of whiteboarding efforts as well, collaboration areas as well. So that's what it creates. Then you can also open up your environments to other parties, like ads. You can also create you can also create areas where you can have communication between different parties. So that's something that is there. And at the last, which is called as say the application side of things, games can be the users around it. Social networks can be the users. Sports, theater, shopping are something that can be there. So these are called what are called as building blocks of the technologies there. I wanted to show one another thing, which is called as how do you intersect between the virtual and the physical world. We've just talked about this recently. Well, your physical world will be the hosting part of it, which means it's called the infrastructure. Blockchains, other technology areas, compute, because it has to run on a cloud server. So that is something that goes in by the physical world. The virtual world will bring in the various ecosystems, like creators, like avatars, like users who generate content. And as both of these worlds converge together, right, that's where the interaction emerges, or where the experiences emerges. So which means a twin of your university, or an interface where you can collaborate together on a whiteboard, or say a design thinking experience, or you can create an experience for say virtual shopping, or virtual touring. So that's how both of them combine together. Let's very quickly look at how are the players doing surfacing around it. These are some of the companies that are working across different areas of building the metaverse, from programming engines to financial services to asset marketplaces to even hardware interfaces. Very quickly, what I can talk about over here is that each one of them, right, is right now working in their own specific areas, right? So you don't have, say, a company that can give you metaverse as a service, which means all of them together. That right now is not happening, because everything is being built as we speak. It's in an exploratory stage, and it's being done in various stacks that we just saw in the previous slide. A lot of big players are into this game. There's billions of dollars of investments that's going across. This certainly, I need not talk about some of the initiatives, but they're quite they're quite in the market. But Meta has launched Horizon Workspaces from the enterprise workplace collaboration perspective. They give you Oculus Quest 2 as the hardware for social networks. Unity as the technology building is also going into it. Well, Microsoft is one of the players that is going enterprise first. Microsoft is building, so like we are on Zoom, right? There is Teams, MS Teams, that is there on the Microsoft front. So Microsoft is building a version called as Mesh, MESH, Mesh for Teams, which is their version of workplace collaboration inside the metaverse. You'll be able to create your avatars on an engine, and then you'll be able to communicate on that. Well, Google is taking an augmented reality approach where they, after the acquisition of Glass, they would like to move a bit more towards the physical reality realm right now, since they have a lot of software stack offerings on the map side, right? How they can overlay that on some of the existing tools, and likewise, right? So that was the market view. Well, um, some of the areas that still need work, right, are these two. They're still being worked on. One are the communication protocols, because metaverse will be the new form of the internet. As you have internet protocols right now, these protocols right now don't exist in the metaverse. So those communication protocols are still under development, still under discussions. These are policies that will govern the metaverse. We've also seen some of the cases of misuse of areas, of features inside, when people have complete freedom inside that. So how do we go about governance and areas like that? So that's something that's under development. How we handle intellectual property is also an area of development or exploration. So we've seen NFTs, or we've seen tokens that can be individually guaranteed, but how do we talk about creating or building solutions inside the virtual world? So that is something also under development. Now, how should organizations be prepared, and how should organizations really think of uh, going about it? Well, don't wait is something that is advised. In the short term, right? Assign a task group within your firm. This task group can consist of the business side, like research, competency building from a technology standpoint, business standpoint, ecosystem building. Which partners, we saw a lot of partners in the previous slide. Some of them were startups, some of them were tech OEMs. So which of them to catch on early on? That's something that is there. Define your company strategy, which means that what do you want to do? A lot of companies, if they have a very good, because if you see, right, metaverse is not some technology, not a combination of these technologies that does not exist. You have people who have been trained on AR and VR technologies, XR. You have people who have been or who are working on the Web3 technologies, like blockchain, and all of those who are coming up, right? So how do you upscale your in-house employees across various stack levels, versus if you have to hire, and how many have do you have to hire? Then the next is basically testing your waters. So companies are picking up low risk use cases to start with. Like avatar creation is a very simple form of use case. If you're looking at an employee level of engagement inside a company, right? People are looking at talking about the first experience where you are changing your 2D vision of a person to a 3D avatar. That's the first use case that you can sort of talk about. Very, very, very low risk, right? People are selling their digital versions of their physical goods, like Gucci and other brands are also doing that, right? People are launching NFT tours. You have a university, people are launching NFT tours of sorry, people are launching virtual tours of the entire campus, of the entire offices, to clients, to other stakeholders, so that they can get an experience of the virtual environment, right? People are launching NFTs of specific assets, specific movements, and specific creations that are there, and certainly building brands around this. Now all of this can converge at if enterprises are pretty much ready, they're also looking at leasing virtual space or buying virtual space, but that's a high risk decision. after you pick up some of the low risk use cases. In the long term, right, we'll see organizations building trust. Some of the elements that we just talked about, cybersecurity, privacy rights, haven't been addressed right now. How do we go about that? Well, one of the keys is that you communicate early on in terms of which type of use cases and which type of strategies to really follow about. Uh, Now that you have picked up a pilot, right, assess that pilot and pick up a core competency where you would like to go in the long term, whether it is utilizing your skills to develop the metaverse, or to form a consultancy group, or it is a platform that your skilled employees have created, versus if you have a very strong network of partners, right, versus security, which is the trust that or the policies that you can offer to your clients, or to your stakeholders. Then the last in the long term would be unifying your metaverse presence. It should be a very seamless experience. Your customers should not be confused. What should they look at? Should they look you as an extended reality partner, versus something that is in pieces, but it is still there. So that communication has to be very strong in terms of who are you, what is your metaverse presence in the real world versus the virtual world. So that's your long term perspective. I had one more slide, right, to show, which is what does the job scenario look like, since we have some students also joining us. Well, from the technology standpoint, right, there are a lot of roles from a virtual reality, augmented reality standpoint. Technologies like cloud computing, 5G, digital twin, all of these are very much under demand. We're seeing the development side also being under focus. From a business side, we can see consultants in these many areas, marketing in these many areas, policy formulation as a requirement in these many areas, and community building, whether it's a growth area or a collaboration perspective. That's coming out quite strong, because as organizations start to build their own metaverses, you will have to start basically people who uses what. So your own organization becomes your first test bed, and then it becomes other clients who can build on your use cases. Now, how do you enter into the verse as an individual? If you want a fully immersive experience, yes, you will need a hardware first and foremost. You can also reduce some of your expectations in terms of degrees of freedom, right? Degrees of freedom would mean your movement, hand movement or hand gestures. Then you can, utilize the laptop computer as well. But typically, hardware devices, vendors like MetaQuest, HoloLens, HTC Vive, these are good to have if you want to start this. If you are a video game expert, or you utilized all of this, Roblox would be something you already know about. Horizon Workrooms is a good place to start with if you have Oculus Quest 2. Second Life is a gaming environment, right? You can also explore digital currencies. Decentraland is a good place to explore that. Something to go about. All right, this is the last slide. To sum it up, basically, in terms of the platforms of engagement, these are the platforms that could be engaged with. A metaverse will be powered by digital payments, currencies, a network that supports it. Now remember that Venn diagram that we saw, right? It's nothing but all of these, right? Combination. So digital payments and currencies, network that is there, computing power, and data and standards that are there. All of this to deliver experiences and content like video games, conferences or events, interactive concerts, sporting events, and some of the other things as well. All right, so thank you, and we can take some questions. How are we with time?
So, Mr. Ajit, we have some questions from, I guess, from the people. Yes. So there are reasons. Yes, Mr. Rajesh. Mr.
So yeah,
Rajesh,
you need to ask a question on behalf of participants, because participants can't unmute themselves.
Okay, fine. I'll do that. Thank you, Sayam. So, Mr. Rajesh, have you? Okay, so we have one question from Miss Lippy. So Lippy has asked, what is digital land? And if Metaverse has no limits, why should one buy or sell digital land?
No, so so I'll break it into two things. Your second question answered first. Why should one buy or sell digital land? So see, organizations are also using somebody else's metaverse to create their own metaverse journey, and or they are also building their own metaverse. So, for example, there is a you know um, there is a virtual Delhi also as we speak, that has been created with different experiences. Now it depends on which area as an organization that you want to go. If you have created your own, if you are starting to create your own metaverse, right, then what you will have is you will have certain experiences that you want to create. It could be buildings that you want to create, and within those buildings you will have land areas that are there. uh, the second thing that you will do is that you can go into the collective shared spaces in the online world that are already existent. I'll take a small example. Snoop Dogg, one of the artists, had also bought some piece of land around that. Now, if you want to be part of that collective, if you want to also do activities like build a house inside that collective, inside that shared environment, you want to shop amongst the brands that have been associated in that collective, right, then certainly you will have to go about looking at buying those assets or even leasing those assets, if to go over that. I hope that helps, Lipi.
Uh, we have a next question. We have many questions, in the row. So,
Yeah, let me try answering.
yeah.
uh,
Uh,
okay, Lipi
from
says she got
Shabaz,
it.
we have.
1 second, I'm reading. Shabazz, what are the use cases? Okay, in medicine. Very interesting question, Shabazz. So we are looking at, let me talk about life sciences and healthcare as a broader terminology rather than just medicine. So some of the use cases, very early or simple use case in healthcare life sciences is pre and post surgery planning. I'll just talk about one of them. There are many. So what you do is that if you have a complicated surgery, you need a team of experts. Those experts need not be inside your state. They may come from different states as well. If it's a really complicated surgery, then certainly it might be from different countries as well. Now, surgery doesn't happen just like that. You have a lot of steps that build up towards the surgery, which are called as pre-surgery planning. And then after the surgery comes completes, then you have what are called as post-surgery plannings. Now, healthcare metaverses are developed and formed in such a way that you can replicate those scenarios in a digital twin, those patient scenarios, and try out and collaborate on those pre-surgery environments so that you have a much more informed decision ahead of the actual surgery. So that's use case number one, pre and post surgery. Outside of this, sorry about that. Outside of this, a very simple use case is that if a team of, say, a body of doctors of 10 to 12 surgeons have done this, right, you may want to also capture it, right, for the future doctors who might come across this scenario. So what a lot of hospitals like Stanford University, I know, is doing is that they are forming these as training data sets or training areas where young resident doctors can also conduct and be part of this surgery process again and again. So that's one use case, Shabazz. One or two use cases there. Okay, I think we can, in the interest of time, right? There are others as well, Shabazz. You can reach out to me. We can chat about it. But I think let's move on to the next one. we have Diti. I think Diti, I just answered that right now with Lipi's question. Um, so, but I'll just complement it with no, the entire metaverse is not owned by any company. That is not. There are two different things we're talking about. Companies are creating their own metaverses. Um, they are also creating digital currencies, digital assets. If you create your own metaverses, and you will be part of that collective in that case, or you create your own collective. Through Agarwal, what is the use of NFTs? Okay, so think of NFTs as again non-fungible token. Non-fungible means you cannot break them or you cannot tamper with them, right? And these are basically um, so this is a trust technology called as blockchain, in which you have what is called as a peer-to-peer transaction. So which means that if one person does a transaction, right, it forms a specific chain of events. It starts a chain of events that is being captured. A record is being created which cannot be destroyed or which cannot be changed or which cannot be altered by someone else. That same technology is being used to create a token. A token is nothing but, say, a code. That code is immutable, or it cannot be destroyed unless you have sold it, but it can be transferred from one person to another. So you sell your tokens to, say, somebody else, and then they get it. The use of NFTs is that if you have your own t-shirt that you have, say you're a creative person, you're an artist, you've built a t-shirt that's something that's out of your own imagination. How do you ensure that somebody else doesn't copy your design? That's where these technologies come into the play. Okay, next question. I hope that helps. I'll go, and if it doesn't, right, what I'm doing is, since there's a lot, you can start typing in your other questions if it hasn't helped, and let's see if we have time. What kind of budget we should look at? Okay, so Tushar, see, basic applications, you will certainly need to choose a platform. There are two things. Either you build your own platform, or you use a platform that is already built, right? And then you build on top of it. For example, there is a platform called as uh, uh, one second. What was the name? Getting Yeah. So there is a platform. I think it's called Open AR or Open VR, where you can start to create your own experiences in the in you just need to know a bit of coding that is there. Hold on. Alt Space VR. Yeah, that's the name. I'll tag it here. Yeah, this is it. So you can start to create that on your own, or you can also look at some of the platforms that are out there. Now budget all depends on how till what level are you looking at to creating that experience. For example, you can create a basic experience with a 2D environment as well, where you have different people logging in from areas in a 2D environment setup. You don't need all of those immersive components, right? Vis-a-vis, you can look at creating an always on environment which requires a higher compute capacity. So you will need those resources tagged in together. So that's how I would sort of talk about a budgetary scenario. Ansh asks, what anti-verse arguments? Okay, that is a very good question, Ansh. I am glad you brought it up. Yes, um, it will destroy the social nature of youngsters. See, this happens with any new technology. जब मोबाइल फोन आया था तो उसको लेके भी there were some, I hope everybody is comfortable with a bit of Hindi also, but we had challenges there also. So ऐसा नहीं होता है कि this will not happen. So the other day I was reading about some anti-social elements who were not behaving properly in some environment. So yes, there are areas that need to be worked across. It's not perfect, it's evolutionary. You don't have governance in place, you don't have communication policies in place, this will happen. See, the best way how organizations are doing is that once they are preparing their own mini verses, or once they're preparing their own realms, right, they're having their own security policies in terms of I've seen platform players having what are called as personal protection zones. So if you have an avatar, you have a personal zone around that avatar. Nobody can enter or nobody can cross that unless you allow that. These are some very small steps that are being taken across. Next is your question around mental and physical health. See, uh, so there was a question around medicine as well. Well, there is exactly a use case around ADHD. That's a condition, medical condition that is there, which could be cured with the help of certain applications that are built on immersive reality headsets, and also wellness initiatives or wellness programs. Because one of the very cool things of some of the hardware partners is that you have a component of spatial audio. Now that also re-energizes your mind across all of this. But yes, there are instances where people have been feeling nauseated. Why? Because your brain is functioning in both the aspects. Your brain is also processing कि आपके real world में क्या चल रहा है, and your brain is also processing inside your headgear. Your eyes are rolling, all of that is happening. But as in when this experience becomes more more I would say inclusive, right? The headgears right now are very bulky, they have to be miniaturized, they have to be made lightweight, they have to be made more integrated. So as that happens, right, these things will reduce. And yes, you don't need to be always on inside the virtual environment to be part of that particular activity. So yes, that's something that's there. And I hope, Ansh, you are talking about some of the youngsters, right? So uh, see, Gen Z is the one who has started also the initial driving factors of in terms of games. Now uh, it's solely up to you if you think that is this is where a lot of use cases will go, right? So I believe you all should rethink where you should bring the use case or the use of this brilliant concept. Okay, next. Technology or programming language. Unity is a good technology to start with. So Aditya is asking about Solana and blockchain. I am not sure, Aditya, about Solana. Let's maybe discuss offline on that. Uh, Blockchain is there. See, blockchain is used for the financial components, financial transactions that are there. If you don't have blockchain, you will not be able to do a critical component. If you don't have let me put it this way, if you don't have a decentralized or a trust-based commercial framework, you will not be able to do one core component. Remember, we saw characteristics of 6 characteristics of metaverse. So if you don't have that, right, basically your platform is not able to do a very core critical component. We at Gadget Gurus. Medical, I think I just addressed it, Prateek. Future of coin, see, this is already under use. Every platform will have coin based engagements, and either you can see, why do people have coins? So that you get glued to their you get hooked to their platform. That's the use of all of that. Now, as powerful the content is, whether it is a game, whether it is something else, the more you will be glued or hooked to the environment, and you'll make more of these purchases. Budget, I think I just addressed it. View for government regarding, okay, our government budget, I'm not sure. I all I remember is that we have now started to take a bit of perspective into cryptocurrency in the recent budget, but outside of this, we'll have to check. Will the metaverse include data mining? Could you be a bit more specific? Data mining, uh, so it might be included in the applications that you create on the metaverse. Because see, uh, the metaverse will become will be a stack of technology offerings, and on top of it, you will have to create applications. One application is avatar creation. One application is profile creation. One application is, say, a shopping mall. One application is, say, an educational classroom setup. Now, for all of that, you will certainly have the backend layers in terms of infrastructure, logic, and application layer. All those things that will be there. Okay, how does identity be established? Thank you, Shebaz. How does identity be established? See, think of your eventually you will have one avatar instead of having multiple avatars in multiple metaverses, and then you can actually have your avatar being associated. I'll give you all a task. Go to this website called as Get My Avatar. um, what is the name? I'll tell you. You can create your avatar right away by just clicking your profile picture. uh, you know Yeah, it's called readyplayer.me. It's a free one to get your first experience. All you need to do is either you upload your 2D picture or you click your picture as a selfie, and then you get a first feel of how your avatar looks like, and then your avatar will also have some hash codes associated with it, and you can share, and you can do a lot of it about it. So see, the process is the thought process behind it is that, see, getplayer.me is doing all of this so that it becomes the core of avatar generation creation. But then eventually your one avatar has to be linked, or has to be linked with other platforms as well. That's where eventually it will go. Finance sector, very good question, Ridham. JP Morgan Chase has launched Onyx, ONYX, as one of the platforms. Some of the use cases in financial services sector is that as you have things like virtual events, you will have things like virtual concerts, you will have things like all of those. You will certainly need a banking environment, and as your avatar is going into a building and attending those events, you may also very well go into a bank and collect some of those, say, a virtual ATM. Next is, from an education standpoint, perhaps training your employees in an actual banking environment setup that's replicated in the digital twin, vis-a-vis the real banking setup. Because let's face it, people are not going into banks now. So everything is happening on mobile, and then eventually that's how it has to happen. So yes, banks are going replicating banks. There are all of these transactions that are happening. What is the scope of blockchain technology? It's a very generic question, Krishna. There's a lot of scope. I think you know uh, you can certainly Google that. There's a lot of scope. Um, up till few years ago, 90 there was all proof of concepts only, but we are seeing with the advent of NFTs, with the advent of all of these technologies, there's a lot of um, applications that are coming across. Still, I haven't got offers. Okay. Yeah, it's your choice. This is Samar's question. Still, I haven't got any offers. See, that is the point, because yeah, so I mean, it depends. Yeah, you can market it more. People have to join. there is a lot of marketing that is required at the moment. So yes. Srishti, I am not sure about the question. Maybe we can discuss this offline. Samarth has, okay, I think has marketed it. How do I get ideas on that basis? By Srishti. Srishti, if you can maybe unmute yourself and ask, I'm not sure of the question.
Achyut, I think the participants are not allowed to unmute themselves. So I will request Shrishti to please, elaborate the question so that you can understand that. Shrishti, can you do that?
All right, whilst that is happening, Pratik is asking, .com boom made billionaires, but that phased out. Well, it has also, brought in serious companies. It's not that it phased out. It happens with every new technology trend, but Metaverse is here to stay. It will not move forward. Uh, I mean, there will no. See, it's a concept of various technologies put together. So if you are saying that metaverse fades away, you're also saying that immersive reality and blockchain and all of those things fade away. So are we saying that in that case we are saying that the world cannot be trusted and a decentralized economy cannot happen, right? So that's a big question there. Which platform you said to create AR VR? Unity. Unity is a good platform. Can you please type the link here? Unity, guys. Unity. Okay, we go back. Who was I? Dave Chauhan. Yeah. That's a good question, Dave. See, people are making unique experiences, um, because see, large organizations want their employees to be associated with their own employee base, right? I mean, with something that is associated with them. It can also happen that an organization's metaverse can be associated with somebody else's, but we'll see where this goes. But yes, both of these things are happening. Yes, so digital currency can happen in both the ways. You can use crypto, or you can also, convert if a crypto is not required, then you can also buy those digital coins, whether it's on a crypto layer or not, using your USD or INR. Okay, let's send you. Okay, fine. What is the first website you told? First website. Alt Space VR. Okay, that was a direct message. Sorry. Space VR. Satya has no question. Okay. See, decentralization is for the payment transaction basis. Uh, so let me take an example. If Webhub has created Webhub X as a building, right? And that has been claimed, or that has been uniquely tokened out there, then somebody else cannot create web of X, but might create something else. But it depends on who creates which one, right, at the first. So either webhub creates web of X independently, or webhub creates web of X inside some other collective. It depends again. But to start with these things, there are a lot of leased lands that are there that you can take up, or you can also start your experiences in terms of hosting or taking a piece free of cost in some of the areas. I'll give you one more link, of a company which I was looking at very recently. And Priyal, do let me know how much time is left so that I'll not keep on uh, boring everyone. One second. Yeah, it's called engagevr.io. you can start exploring also, and you can start engaging here. This has been sent to other people. Yes. Okay, this is done. Hmm. All right, Srishti. So it's a blockchain company. Blockchain company. So like, how do we need to come along with that? Srishti, can you email me or can we connect? I think we'll have to discuss a bit further on this. How are we supposed? So fine, if this is a blockchain company, how do we need to come along with that and we're supposed to start? Okay, so to uh, see, the last part is very simple. You have Manan from the GUSEC. How do you start and raise the beginning of a startup model is you be part of an incubator. And GUSEC is an excellent incubator. You identify a use case, you get onboarded. There's a business plan that you need to form. You need to identify which target, what is the niche that you're offering, right? And what is the unmet need that you are trying to solve, and then the incubator takes it from there. You get onboarded to a cohort, you work there, you create a prototype, you be part of demo days, and that's how a startup company evolves. Prateek, no, no, we are not putting all our eggs in one basket. What I said was, okay, meta and metaverse are two different things. Meta is Facebook, metaverse is the concept. uh, 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 the blockchain is the technology layer on which you can create certain assets like NFTs. Um, what you are saying is that if blockchain falters, right? But blockchain has been also created by different players. Like there is Ethereum. There are other blockchain platforms as well. Are we saying that all of them falter? The question is why? Because now governments are recognizing cryptocurrencies. Now it's being recognized as currencies in, I believe it was Venezuela, that was the first country to legalize the currency. So yes, I mean that's a quite far off area where everything gets malfunctioned, but I wouldn't say we go there right now. How is it different from hologram? Rohit, hologram is in your real reality, in which if say I have a watch, I am projecting a light ray, and it gives me a holographic Rohit on my watch, on top of my watch, right? So that's on your real reality. Um, Virtual reality is when you cannot see it in your real arm, real environment, but you are seeing it in a virtual environment. So which could be inside, say a game. It could be inside a virtual setup, an immersive setup. So both of them are completely different. All right, thank you. Just last one, legal in metaverse. I think that's the only thing I missed out, and please let me know if I've missed out anything else. Legal in metaverse. Uh, See, legal. Um, there are there are again, it's a very broad concept, but from what I understood was what you're asking is what are the legal implications. Say, so policy formulation can be one, right? How do you address? Um, and if your question is what are the legal use cases or law use cases in metaverse, so the first simple use case of a law in metaverse is how do you authenticate document signing. I'm sure you would have heard of a tool called as DocuSign, which is an e-signing document, right? So can you sign your documents using NFTs so that it is very secure? So that's one use case. Yeah, Pratik. So I'll share this deck. This will have all the use cases what I talked about, right? There is a slide on touring and all of the other use cases. I'll share this deck ahead with you. Yes, Rutik. Research, formulation, early stage research, all of those. So, for example, uh, you know, uh, uh, you have basically testing. You have you can link, you can replicate a physical lab setup into a virtual setup and start conducting those experiments with the help of your tools. You have controllers that are there. It could be on a visual basis. It could also be on say an experience basis. After you have created say um, say say a product, right? And then you would like it to be tested by someone and then brought forward. A very good question. Ability to smell. There is this research. In fact, there is touch and feel also, haptics and all of those, right? I think it's still exploratory, but yes, when the technology is there, it should be it should be out, it should be also addressed.
So, Mr. Achyut, I would like to, we have another speaker join in as we have mentioned on the mail. So, Mr. Sai Krishna, uh, Mr. Krishna, you there?
Hey guys, hey, how's it going? Sai here.
Hi. So, Mr. Achyut Chandra and Mr. Sai Krishna. We have both speakers join in for the metaverse as well. And Mr. Achyut has been taking care, till now he has covered all the topics regarding the metaverse. So now can we have is there anything that you have planned, Mr. Sai Krishna, regarding this?
First up, thank you so much for having me around. I'm a little rushed, but I'll probably do quick intros so that the rest of us know what we're up to in this scenario. My name is Sai. I'm sort of your textbook definition of an accidental entrepreneur. Built an tech startup in the past, exited that, then graduated from Stanford, got back to India and started building an AR VR company. That was acquired by Flipkart. And since then have been building through a venture studio that got acquired by Polygon. Now, just to backtrack here, Polygon's probably the most important crypto play from India in the longest time, right? So I am an advisor to Polygon at the chain level, as well as work through on strategic projects when it comes through to the core metaverse side. There isn't a better time to build. So I think my core goal here is to probably end this call by having a lot of fun. One, discussing a bunch of things with you all, but more importantly, look at reasons as to why we even call this an exciting piece of technology in the first place, right? Let's remove all the BS around it. So if you guys want to go through a slightly more grounds up level understanding of what these core technologies are, happy to do that over some quick slides. But if you want to keep this, a little bit more freewheeling, and you guys have a bunch of questions that you might want to ask and questions that you typically couldn't in a forum otherwise, I think we can do that as well. So we can make this as serious and practical, or as absolutely freewheeling and then sort of a riff as much as possible, depending upon what the sessions previous to this have been. Quick pause. Is there a way to do a poll on this, or do you guys have a preference? What's it like?
I think we'll ask them in in the chat box, because we already have certain things lined up in the poll. So it completely depends on you as well, if you wish to have what is your preferred style or something that you are comfortable with as well.
Sure. So let's do a quick 101 with respect to core concepts, and then from there perhaps move through to a Q&A, and sort of through that process see if there is going to be any pieces that we could spend some time on. Just confirming if my screen's visible.
Yes, it is.
All right, perfect. All right, guys. Like I said, my journey into building things on chain as well as in virtual and augmented reality is not by preaching, but to actually build startups. There's a huge difference, right? From where we come at it, the best way to learn is not this talk. The best way to learn is not by someone else telling you what's important. Let's face it, you guys are in, say, STEM programs, you guys are in engineering courses. 4 years of engineering taught me next to nothing. What I rather did was I got started building things. And when I was building things, I made a ton of mistakes. As I made a ton of mistakes, I learned from these mistakes. And the best way to learn is probably not to end up repeating the same mistakes that you do from your previous times. That's it, right? Everything else is greedy. To this, I've spent more than 8 years in early stage startups in augmented and virtual reality. This was a long time before things were even called the metaverse. The best time to be a part of a technology is when nobody's talking about it. That's when you're truly, building expertise. Since then, I built Scapec, which was an AR platform that now continues to be Flipkart Camera, and everything that Snapchat and Flipkart do in collaboration started because of the Scapec side of the fence. Now, since then, I advise as well as invest in early stage metaverse companies. And even before we get to that, right, let's sort of spend a little bit of time trying to understand what the hell is this metaverse thing even all about. Because I see a lot of signal to noise. I see that it's very easy for people to claim a lot of things, but at its very heart, right, metaverse is not about a virtual world or just about a virtual world, right? It's so much more profound than that. So let's break this down. Let's sort of take a little bit of time trying to understand what's going to go on. If you go onto the internet and you try to read about this term, someone who is like very renowned in the space might call it this way, right? Like it's a massively scaled, interoperable network, multiple virtual worlds connected together with so many users with a sense of presence as well as what is going to go through. Yeah, very cool. Like, but what do I do with this definition? And Matthew Paul's the best in the space. But this definition is not going to help me learn or contribute or be part of what the metaverse is in any meaningful sense. So let's break this down even more. To put it simply, you can live, shop, work, interact, and have fun, right? This is the logical next step of the internet, where just as much as on the internet, you buy things, you get your work done, you sort of interact with your friends. The metaverse is a 3D embodiment of all of the things that you're already doing and the way that it is actually just coming online or onto a 3D space or a 3D world here in this case. Now, what that means is, okay, sure, that's cool and all that, but that's the internet, right? Like we all do that today. So how's the internet different from the metaverse? Now, that's really where you need to spend time on trying to understand where do these lines cross over and where do these lines stop. There are a bunch of activities such as games, concerts, anything that you do on the metaverse that you simply can't do or can't do well enough when it comes to the core concepts of the internet. Now, in the internet, you're a spectator, right? Like as I'm talking to you guys are spectating with about 62 odd other participants here, spending time on trying to passively absorb this. Now, in a 3D embodiment, all of this could happen in a spatial environment. And as it happens in a spatial environment, you're sort of truly living that experience. And those social fabric moments are like just so much richer than a Zoom call with like, a grid of screens where probably some of you are already browsing on WhatsApp in the first place. Now, given that, you also can transfer your digital identity across multiple areas. Now, what does that mean? Think of as you log in from WhatsApp to say Google Photos to Instagram to say to your college network, your ID or the way that you carry yourself is one, inconsistent, and two, is also deeply linked to your IRL or your in real life representation. Now, in the metaverse, you can be absolutely anything and anyone you want, right? Like you could be a fantasy character. You could be yourself. You could be a complete pseudonymous identity and still do the things that you do in a good degree of success. Digital identity in itself becomes so much more fluidic and amorphous between the internet to what the metaverse is, as it's an embodiment. Now, the best part of all of this is the differentiating function is in the metaverse, you are an active participant, right? Versus the internet, where you're a passive absorber of what is typically happening through here. Now with that, we're sort of breaking this down into 7 odd layers because we keep talking about the metaverse and We keep talking about a bunch of things that typically go on here, but look, again, it's very easy to claim a lot of things. It's easy to put a 2D GUI right on top of a 3D world and say, look, all your 2D applications now work in a 3D environment, and that's solving it for no one. Instead, let's sort of break it down into 7 constituent layers that need to be revolutionized for this concept of an interoperable 3D world to come through together. Now, these 7 layers are going to be across infrastructure, human interfaces, decentralization, spatial computing, creators living on top of this, a better way to discover their content, and a better way to experience their content. That's it, right? So if we had to break the metaverse down into 7 layers of opportunities that all of you at the end of this call could perhaps go out there and explore a little bit further on, this is it. Now, to which, what does each layer mean? And just as a quick run through, we could probably spend a little bit of time on each one of these layers and have like a freewheeling conversation around it right after. The first layer to this is infra, right? Shit doesn't work if shit doesn't work. You need the metaverse to sort of have better connectivity, better graphics, better rendering, and better technologies all together in order to even make this a possibility. Which means that our devices need to get faster. Our devices need to be connected with faster internet. And in between this, the GPUs and the materials that we typically use in order to run these experiences have to just become an exponentially better degree than what they are today. I mean, our PCs will struggle to run, say, God of War right now, right? Like, let alone running a massively interoperable 3D world as we go forward. And that is really where a big change is required, right? Like 5G connectivity across Wi-Fi 6, as well as cloud being, or the edge doing a lot of the specific distributed computing here is going to make a massive difference at an infra level. The second is, let's assume that the infra sort of takes care of itself. I mean, we already pay our network providers a hefty amount of money, so hopefully they do that. The second is human interfaces, which is today, we're asking people to quote unquote experience the metaverse using WASD as well as your computer. That's an awful experience, right? Like, you're not going to go around a 3D world, which is not a game, and try to experience a bunch of these things without any real reason to do so. Let me be honest, Zoom is a perfectly good user interface for a 2D world, right? If it's a desktop or a mobile phone, having a grid of participants that I can take a look at is actually the better user interface. But where does the metaverse or a 3D version make more sense is when all of this becomes a better HCI layer on top. Smart glasses are your actual answer to solving a lot of these computing paradigms as compared to saying, look, you can invoke the metaverse in your phone as well as a desktop. You sure can, but it was never built for that sort of an experience, right? So that's really where the next layer in terms of how we talk to AI, how do we interact with smart glasses? And sure, you can have some pipe dream futures in this, such as, say, some random haptics, or you can smell the kind of stuff that you are. But see, that's good for a Times of India article right now as compared to practical things that we need to be solving for. Look, practically, you have so many more big issues to go after. The devices we wear and the way we interact with these devices are, in this scenario, the most important things that you should spend time on. The third is decentralization. Now, it doesn't need me to tell you guys that the blockchain as well as NFTs and ways that microservices are running on top of a decentralized world with dApps is just blowing out of the roof, right? Like, you cannot have missed NFTs over the last, say, 12 to 18 months in the scenario that you've come online, right? So the very concept of these NFTs and additional areas is exciting only because of the metaverse. The chance for you to take your digital identity across and carry true ownership between the products you own, the things you do across an NFT stack, as well as have decentralization to preserve your identity, preserve your data, preserve access to platforms is very important. So if you're building a product on chain, I think now is probably a best time where you think through what metaverse constructs can be and work backwards on the data layer, on the NFT layer, the art, the 3D gameplay, the land, and the core platforms around which these metaverse applications become useful and become sort of ubiquitous. The next then is, okay, all this is cool, right? Like, we're improving infra, we're making smart glasses happen. On top of that, we're decentralizing a lot of these things. But Jesus, like all of this is possible and useful only if we have a good way to do spatial computing functions on top of it. What do I mean by that? Is imagine we invented the smartphone, but we don't have a good way to write Android apps for the smartphone or iOS apps for the smartphone, right? That's gonna defeat the purpose. And that's really where 3D engines come through together. So 3D engines such as Unity and Unreal are just exceptionally powerful right now already as we speak. So the core goal is to sort of see what 3D engines can be pushed through to in the metaverse sort of use case. Today, if you see a lot of these metaverse applications, they're very low fidelity, right? Like the graphical ability for them to crunch is a lot lesser. It looks a little like what Mario was back in the day when we first started, playing games on our consoles. Now, from there, we have to get to a point where this is it's sort of indistinguishable from like actual reality. And in order for us to do that, the kind of ways that we use our 3D engines, the ways that 3D engines can render this content has to get a lot better. Then, of course, you do all of this, but at the end of the day, you need creators, right? Like you need people. And look, this is not about dancing in front of in Instagram for like a bunch of views, right? I'm not talking about that level of creation. I'm more talking about design tools, workflows. How do you make commerce happen on top of this? How assets can be bought and sold in the concept of the metaverse. The ability for you to generate value on top of all of the layers that I discussed is really where an economy needs to be built in. And that remains at the design layer, the asset layer, the tooling layer, and the commerce layer. And the last is discovery. Now, all of this is possible only so that we are able to easily discover this content. Now, that's really where an app store will come in, a search engine will come in, social networks will come in, curation will become more important. People will start writing emailers or lists in terms of what are the best things in the metaverse you can do. It literally replicates the real world. And discovery as a layer in the real world is your parents telling you what was a good spot to eat, your friends telling you what was a good spot to hang out at, and your college telling you where the college is so that you can go there and spend a lot of time trying to learn, or more importantly, having a ball time with your friends. Now, these discovery layers in the metaverse are going to become just as useful, important, or permeable as we sort of go about it. And the last part is experiencing all of this. Every part of the metaverse is kind of useless if there are not enough people to experience it, as compared to be excited by it. I think there are more people excited about the metaverse than experiencing the metaverse as we speak right now. Please, like, even if you don't have a VR headset, just get out there and start seeing what these platforms are. This could be across games, socials, esports, right? Like there's a lot happening there, and even commerce. So these are sort of the things that you can do in the metaverse, right? And effectively, if you sort of extrapolate the situation and say, okay, let's assume that a lot of these things are possible. And if they are possible, what all can we do? The honest answer is almost anything you want. But today, a lot of these use cases are skeuomorphic in nature, which is why I've listed these here. Skeuomorphism is this function where you take something that works in the real world and you try to make it in the digital world. Sure, it's very cute, but you don't have to restrict your digital world to just what the real world can do. Imagine the kind of completely new use cases that will come about in the metaverse, which are simply not even possible in the real world in the first place. That is the most exciting part of this. The metaverse is not about recreating the real world. The metaverse is about creating a parallel world that has some real life elements and logic to it, but extending that to completely new creative boundaries is truly where we need to probably be spending some time on. And the technologies that are needed to build this sort of a metaverse dream coming true is all here, is all now. The way that blockchain is sort of moving through with crypto as well as NFTs is super inspiring. You're always going to have generational jumps in respect to connectivity. Cloud to edge computing is super exciting, and augmented and virtual reality are just two of the spaces which I remain the most optimistic about. So to these, you're just going to have faster, denser, and more energy efficient ways of doing a lot of these things at a semiconductor level, at a cloud level, and at a device level, which means that the metaverse is coming, right? Like whether we like it or not. So we need to spend a little bit of time just having a lot of insight, fun, and excitement as we're going about building this through. Where do you even get started, right? Like from a college from a bunch of you guys who are still at college, the answer is simple: gaming. Right? Like gaming actually plays a huge role in the metaverse, and you guys have already played enough games in order for you to understand what's going on here. So if you're sort of thinking of this sort of a world to come in, start playing a game, right? Like that is your Fortnite is probably going to be more adjacently explanatory about what the metaverse is compared to, like, say, a random YouTube video or a huge article, or even probably this conversation here. Just live it, right? Like live it as much as you can. Like go to Roblox, go to Sandbox, go play a game that mimics a metaverse. I think you get a true sense of what is even possible here. And that's where traditional structures are going to evolve. If gaming works, imagine as you game, you sort of learn something and move forward. You get to, connect these ideas and sort of see what really makes sense in these facets. If gaming works, you can then see virtual spaces as a way to do more things. And as gaming works, probably a bunch of other megatrends will sort of start ending up working as well. And we can talk about each one of these trend lines and how they can go forward with. But again, like I said, if there is a time that you should be excited about building an interesting startup in the metaverse, is probably now, right? Because blockchain adoption is going through the roof in terms of the number of people who are jumping on Ethereum on a daily basis. The metaverse is really built on the bedrock that great blockchain products or scalable chains are going to make for incredibly good NFT adoption, contractual adoption, and this in turn makes the metaverse possible. So I'm sort of rushing through the rest of the slides here because I think a lot of this can be kept to a general chat in terms of how creator economies go through, decentralization goes through, and fundamental shifts to Web3 can sort of happen together. And what are the changes that are present in, and how we can spend time in that layer, and what the market right now for the metaverse really looks like. But here's the part: you're already probably a little late getting started here, right? Because that's how quickly the space is evolving. But honestly, like, we're barely scratching the surface. So if there was a time and there was a moment in terms of looking at implications and how we bring value and the way we sort of go about the whole metaverse scale here, I think now is probably the time where you start thinking through like an entrepreneur and sort of having a lot of fun seeing what this sort of world can come through. Now, quick pause. Would love to probably look at the way that we can we can sort of go about discussing some of these elements, but happy to answer some specific questions as well, because I can go on the slides. I believe that we are here for a dialogue as compared to me doing a long boring presentation in itself per se. So I'll pause here. Yield to the floor. Happy to sort of discuss any things that you guys have in mind, and we can go through that specifically.
So thank you so much for a wonderful session, Mr. Sai. So we have many questions definitely, and a lot will be coming in as well. So we'll just I'll just read a few to you. Okay. So we have two questions from Weber. So DNN is brought AI to mainstreams for AR, VR, MR, XR. Even the demo Alex Kipman showed at launch event of HoloLens in the 2015 are not possible with all cloud computing power. What's missing here, even after billions spent by the biggest companies on these headsets?
Sure, that's interesting. First up, some of Microsoft's work in this space is probably the most inspiring, right? The second part is you're literally trying to invent a future. This is not going to come easy. It's not about the billions that are poured in. Probably hundreds of billions of dollars more will be poured into this space before anything becomes a reality in the first place. I think the larger part to understand here is this is not a step function. This is not Realme launching a phone which is 10% faster than the previous Realme phone that's out there, right? Like, this is not some incremental edge case. What we're really trying to do here is invent a completely new display technology. And on top of the display technology, have everything that your typical smartphones and desktops used to do be fit into a region which is less than, say, a 1 square inch perspective. And on that, prevent it from overheating and doing a bunch of things so that your face remains a safe space in order to do or add a lot of these features to. So step back, and it's important to acknowledge that this is probably the holy grail of technology, which is there isn't a device more important, more useful, as well as a higher degree of market monopolization than glasses that can do an incredible number of functions. Now, the second part to understand from there is what is missing. Now, what's missing is the answer is all layers that I just spoke about. there is so much more that needs to be done at a display and a photonics layer, which is ensuring that you're able to present 3D imagery, holograms, call it whatever you want, but do that in a faithful manner. The second is the processing part needs to get a lot better. But the third is everything that was shown on stage is very much possible with respect to what distributed and edge compute is. There are already companies doing a lot of this. In fact, I've worked with teams from, like, say, Lockheed, who do this from a pilot training perspective. Or there is a technology called pass-through virtual reality, where it's not really augmented reality. You have a VR headset. The VR headset has about 8 to 12 cameras that capture the space around you and then augment it on top. Now, these devices are actually exceptional in terms of their performance. So one thing that I think we should look out for is these technologies are hard work. It's going to take you billions more before we get to success. And the third is pass-through virtual reality / augmented reality is probably going to solve for a lot of these as compared to doing holographic or bird bath displays. Now, that's very nerdy, but I think what's important to understand is we are closer than ever to solving it, and pass-through AR and VR is probably going to get us there. You will see a lot of devices this year and the next year being launched with pass-through tech. So lots to be excited about there.
Okay. So thank you so much. I hope that suffices your answer, Mr. Weber. So he has one more question. Isn't Metaverse one more applications or tech based on top of internet as we know it now, because one needs internet to access Metaverse?
You're right. You're completely right on that. Look, these are not competing technologies. These are not replacing each other. In its very core, it's an evolution of what are the things that we already do, which is the internet. Think of the metaverse as a logical next step. It's just a branding exercise on top of the internet with a whole layer of 3D, right? So let's be brutally honest. Our digital worlds are more important than our physical ones, right? All of you here bother more about your Instagram accounts than going for a walk in the park with your dog, your parents, or like whatever. That's it, right? Like that's really where the metaverse starts. The metaverse simply says a digital 3D world is probably going to become as important, if not more important, than your physical world. Look, half that sentence is already true. Your smartphone probably is a lot more important than your room, right? Like in terms of if you're living in the hostel, you don't care as much about your hostel room as much as about the information on your smartphone. That's a very, very different world that we live in. The metaverse takes all of that in terms of digital prioritization, adds a 3D layer to it, places that on your face, literally with AR and VR glasses. And now you are going to do the same things that you're doing on the internet as we speak today in an extended and a crazier way. And that's really why none of these technologies are competing with each other as much as taking everything that we do today with digital addiction and simply extending that to the logical next step in a 3D embodiment of the internet as compared to competing or trying to replace the internet at all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sai. So we have two last questions to line up. I'll just read it quickly. Mr. Sastri Adanki has asked, does Metaverse help in agriculture industries? Right now, we are developing hydroponics technology by helping people to grow their own food. Can we do anything with Metaverse in this hydroponic farming?
Right. Yes, I think the first part to understand here is why should it, right? And I mean that with a sense of earnestness, which is, I think agri is great. It's probably one of those industries which really impacts their life. The best that a Metaverse platform can do is educate a person a little bit better about what hydroponic systems are, help with better visualization, and probably have an investor or a customer who's living like say 5,000, 8,000 miles away, put on a pair of glasses in order to better see your agri farm or your hydroponics equipment, and then understand that in a spatial sense. But in all honesty, I'm cooking this use case up, right? Like I'm actually making this use case in order to retrofit to the necessity here. The short answer is maybe it doesn't need to, right? Like maybe the metaverse is not this magic bullet answer to everything. It's not going to solve world hunger, right? It's not going to solve for use cases like these, which are very important, but not a good fit for the metaverse. So can it do something? Yes, absolutely. Should we view it in that lens? Right now, my answer is no, in terms of there are so many more important things, both for the agri industry to be bothered about, as well as for the metaverse to fix before these two might come through together. So in that scenario, from a practicality perspective, maybe not a good fit. From a possibility perspective, absolutely, we can have learning, visualization, as well as geographical translation of context sort of coming through better in this case.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we have the last question and some of the feedback regarding the presentation as well. So Kanan has written a great presentation, Sai, exciting, but also quite scary to even think about the effects it will have on people from a mental health perspective. Would it create completely passive real life? People who only exist in metaverses? Will people become kinder or meaner? What will metaverse to do how we exist in our real life?
It's a fair question to ask, right? And look, again, I can give you a diplomatic answer, or I can give you a slightly more candid, honest one. The diplomatic answer is technologies are tools, right? Like your smartphone's a tool. Whether you decide to get addicted to it and play PUBG on it 24/7, or whether you decide to, learn more from it in order for your next incredible breakthrough in life, or tune in on a Sunday afternoon very romantically to listen to a nerdy guy talking about the metaverse is truly up to you. Good tools are used well, but are also weaponized very easily. That's what your smartphone is. The metaverse is going to be exactly the same. There are going to be a bunch of us who use it for practical purposes. There are going to be a bunch of us who use it for nefarious purposes. And there are going to be a bunch of us who talk only about the nefarious purpose, forgetting the practical purposes of things, right? Digital addiction is bad. Digital addiction is horrible. But it's also the same thing that brings a lot of us together right now. It's also the same thing that helps me talk to, say, my French bulldog who's 8,000 miles away when I'm staying in San Francisco. Now, there's just so much to like about it. So the answer is yes, you are going to have a bucket of people who are incredibly addicted, who are going to lead passive lives, and who are going to probably prioritize this more than their real worlds. Here's the difference, though. That happened before the metaverse, in all honesty, right? Like that behavior probably started with video games, probably started with smartphones. That's an human intrinsic behavior, right? For the ones or for some of us who end up getting addicted, some switch sort of gets flipped. The metaverse is probably the easiest switch that flips in this case as compared to your smartphone or other things. But the curve of addiction to technology or to nicotine or to anything, right, is an intrinsically human behavior. So as long as we are able to exercise some amount of discretionary caution at a technology level, where like devices start showing you pop-up warnings if you're wearing it for more than say 1 hour, saying, "Yo, easy tiger, like slow down." I think there's a world out there for you to see. Or if we start promoting the real world itself, like in terms of the vast variety of experiences that we need to see as compared to wallpapers on a screen or wallpapers in a 3D world, I think we're already richer in that case. So the metaverse poses that threat. Yes, absolutely. But it is also probably for the first time that you and I can see what's going on in a lagoon in China or what happens towards the Amazonian rainforests. Probably, if used well, can become a great way for us to feel inspired to go travel to these places in the first place. So I see a tool as compared to a weapon. It's really just about how we build experiences on top of this.
I think that would suffice. Yeah, Kanan's reply and if there is any is there any time on hand, or would you like to wrap it up?
I am a little rushed on at 12:45, so we could probably do a couple of more minutes of a conversation if anyone has anything to sort of generally go through. But it's been otherwise a lot of fun. Hopefully, you guys learned a little bit from this as we went through it as well.
Yes, definitely. It was an indeed informative session, and the one who was looking for more on metaverse and the experience that you have shared. So we'll wrap it up for the session today, as you have other commitments. So thank you so much, Sai, for being here. Thank you so much, everyone. Can you just share your LinkedIn ID or a mail ID, whatever you can, so if someone wish to connect with you?
Sure thing. I believe that the easiest would be across my emails or at Twitter. Let me just drop them here.
Yes, in the chat box, that would be great. Like,
Yes, let me do that.
okay.
Just write in or like ping me across these spaces, and happy to sort of pick up a conversation from there and see what we could build out.
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking the time out, and it was a wonderful session, I would say. So thank you so much, Sai. We look forward for hosting such wonderful sessions as well.
Yeah, I wish you guys all the best. A lot of you are just getting started, experiencing the space and being a part of it. So nothing like it, right? In terms of the excitement that typically comes in from building something in the metaverse space. Great time to build. Go have a lot of fun, and welcome to the future. All right, take care, guys. Take it easy. Bye bye.
Thank you.